Okay, so Super Freakonomics is written by two economists and is basically asking questions that can change the way that everyday humans look at the world. And in my opinion, the questions are pretty simple, but they're asking them in such like a different, out-of-the-box way that it really gets us thinking from the very start of the book to the very end of the book. So in the beginning, Levitt and Dubner talk about prostitution and fake Santa Claus. And they're a very odd pair, but they kind of tie them together with the factor of supply and demand. And it kind of makes you think about prostitution in a different way, because is it really all that different from what it says in the book real estate if you look at it from the aspect of supply and demand? So even from the very first chapter, we really are thinking in kind of the way that both of the authors want us to think, in a very outside of the box type of manner, I guess. And then throughout the book, the authors keep us thinking. And
it's basically just a collection of stories centered on the concept of, like, expensive is not better, like, different numbers can lie, but they're needed for everyday life, and that simple solutions aren't always better for the most complicated, I guess, problems.
Yeah.
And that humans can be altruistic to a point. So it's basically just talking about seeing the world through economist eyes.
A lot of the discussions in the book also take place kind of around human behavior and how we act in different ways. And a lot of it has to do with what incentives are involved in each situation. So whether it's monetary, health, like whatever's going on, people always act in different ways. And a lot of times human behavior can actually prohibit us from making like further steps, I guess you could say. And then the last chapter closes off with, again, us thinking a lot. It's talking about monkeys and the way that they deal with one of the most popular controversies, which is money. And it's saying how if animals are becoming so like horrible, like leading to prostitution because of money, what can happen in our world if we also have like money rule the world, I guess you could say.
So it's like saying that money has more cons than pros, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so which chapter did you find most engaging?
I thought the chapter that talked about the simple solutions and how the humans most of the time go for like the most difficult solution to some of the easiest problems was the most interesting, because I really related to it. I guess in my everyday life, I always see people, whether they have the cold or like a little sickness here and there, they always go, oh, well, I can just go to the doctors and get an antibiotic that it could be potentially harmful to the immune system. A lot of them are called back, and like there's so many medications out there that are obviously very difficult to create, and taking them isn't like the best option, but we take them anyway because it's the solution that everyone goes to, when really the most simple solution could just be wash your hands. Or in the one chapter, one of the researchers actually found that with HIV and AIDS, one of the simplest precautions to that was actually just circumcision, which today is such a common thing that goes on when we're first born, that it's actually amazing. I think it said that it's like 60% of males, it's like, it's better, it prevents HIV and AIDS from being transmitted from person to person just from circumcision, which is crazy because a lot of people look even deeper into it, and obviously there's so many people saying like, oh, what cures like are there for HIV, and really circumcision, like condoms, so many easy things to prevent it.
There's also something said about how seatbelts are more effective than car seats in preventing car crash fatalities, and some people they go to car seats for their children when the easy solution would just be a seatbelt because it's cheaper and it's more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another example.
It's really, that whole entire section really like stood out to me just because of how easily it applies to like our everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, do you think that these topics will apply to our lives in 50 years from now?
I think the one we were just talking about definitely will, because there's always going to be simple solutions, and I think definitely this generation's like lazy, so we just go to like the solution everyone else is doing because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to think of our own. But the money chapter, that's definitely, I think, going to be relevant in the next 50 years because money is always going to play a role in our lives because, I mean, we all need it. And you see a lot of like crimes happening from money today in society, like prostitution, and people steal because of money. So I think people will continue to do that in the future. What are your views on terrorism after reading the chapter that talked about terrorism?
In the book, it actually opened my eyes a lot to like the different things that occur within terrorism and like why it happens and how it happens and who it happens with. A lot of people, like it said in the book, a lot of people believe that the less fortunate or like the people that have like a less income at home become to be terrorists, and that is like a very common
Good point.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because we do see today, we would think that, the people that live in like areas of high crime usually have like less money, or they're poorer areas. So you would automatically think that since those people are growing up to be crime invested, that why wouldn't people from like terrorist groups, why wouldn't they have less money and then grow into terrorism? Because it's kind of like, it switches from culture to culture. In America, crime, like stealing whatever it is, and then in other countries, terrorism, because we don't have very many terroristic groups in America, but obviously overseas, we would think that the people that go on like suicide bombings and everything would come from a less fortunate. One of the quotes in the book actually said, which I loved, it said, it may be that, what did it say? It was so...
Oh, it may be that you're
63,
hungry.
yeah.
You're hungry, but you're not thinking about blowing yourself up.
It may be that when you're hungry, you've got better things to worry about than blowing yourself up. And I thought it was kind of funny, but obviously not that funny. But I thought it was funny because it is true, because it says that terrorism actually occurs with people that have more money.
Okay.
How have your views changed on money after reading the last chapter?
Well, like I said before, it has more cons than pros. One of the creative connectors that I have is that, like how I said before, money is always going to play a role in our lives, and I've always thought that money wasn't a good thing. I mean, it does help us out in some ways. We all need money to buy things and to live, obviously. But if you're less fortunate, you're not going to have money, which can lead to you being a terrorist, like you said, because the less fortunate people are. And, what was I saying? Yeah, there's just more cons on it. Like, it leads you to do bad things, like prostitution and stealing and just different things like that.
With the money, I thought in the last chapter it actually leaves us off with like talking about the monkeys and how even mammals are seeing that, like, they notice that money gets them a snack, and then eventually they were like, oh, well, money could lead to sexual favors, so they started trading money among each other, which I thought was so interesting, because even animals took money into a negative way. Like, they didn't use it for anything positive. They used it for sexual favors, which translates into prostitution.
With the car seat thing, it's a law that children have to be in a car seat, but really it's less expensive to get rid of car seats and to just use seat belts. But money plays a whole role in that, because if we get rid of car seats, there's not going to be a lot of money income. So that definitely plays a big role in it too.
That was also, what was the guy's name that we read about?
Oh, it starts with an M.
Yeah, I forget which like researcher it was that did a project on it, but he said that the governments are charging more for like garbage disposal.
Oh, yeah.
They're charging more for garbage disposal because they think that if people
have to pay for their garbage, to make less garbage.
Exactly. So it's always like money is always going to be a very prominent role in our society.
We're never going to get rid of money, so obviously.
It has some negative effects, and it definitely has some positive.
Okay. What passages did you have that you thought were interesting?
I'll look them one up. One of them was on page 208. Let me look it up really quickly.
Okay.
Let me see. Where was it? Consider the high. Where was that at? Do you remember where I found that? Consider the high rate of HIV and AIDS in Africa.
Oh, we talked about
this. For years, public health officials from around the world have been fighting with problems. So that was just talking about the researcher that found that circumcision is the magical treatment to AIDS
this is
and
the
HIV.
simple common solution.
Yeah, so the common solutions, once again, was like my favorite chapter just because it really shows like how many things can be solved with such a common solution. Did you find any passages?
179, paragraph 4. It starts with at the same time. This is another simple solution. At the same time.
At the same time. And this is how the doctor that we couldn't say, what is it? Myfrald has managed to stay wealthy. He's famously cheap. So
yeah, so even though he has a lot of money, he still buys the cheaper things because why would you spend money when you can buy a lot of stuff for like a small price?
So that kind of leads into the other chapter, which is always talking about monetary value of everything and how money rules the world. When this man, it says, what does it say? In addition to his scientific interests, he has accomplished a nature photographer, a chef, a mountain climber, like all these different prestigious roles,
So,
and he still goes to garage sales to buy stuff.
So I think that's like really smart of him to do because he's using the simple solution when most people would go to like the difficult solution and buy all this expensive things because they have money now. But he was smart and went with the cheap solution. Do you have any other ones?
There was one on 139, I think that we kind of already talked about it. It was politicians try to sometimes think like economists, and that's when they decided to charge more for trash bags, thinking that it would bring in less trash because people wouldn't want to pay. Basically, all these chapters lead back to money, which is really interesting to me.
Okay.
Any words that you found?
On page 74, cream skim.
That was one of them that I found too that I thought was really... It was like a weird word. It kind of like stopped me.
Yeah, because I didn't really find any that I didn't know, but I thought that was like kind of a well-chosen word, I guess.
I think that it talked about, on page 74, right? Yeah. It said that doctors would cream skim, which I think that meant that, what I found was that it meant that they...
like did it quickly?
Yeah, I think that they just like skimmed over their patients. They didn't really look at them like thoroughly. Just because they wanted to get to as many patients, they didn't give them like a really good.
So they kind of like gypped them out of
pretty much. Like they probably missed a couple things, and then they didn't like really look into what was wrong with them.
Okay. I found a quote on page 122. It starts with human behavior's influence. And I thought this was an interesting quote.
Let's see, page 122.
It starts with human behavior's influence.
Oh, okay. So human behavior is influenced by a dazzling, complex set of incentives, social norms, framing references, and the lessons gleaned from past experience in a word, context. So that...
It talks about just basically human behavior and how like we're influenced by it, I guess.
Yeah, like everything that influences our human behavior. And that kind of goes into one of the quotes that I found, which was on page 148. And it said, where was it? The brilliant rationalist had encountered a central frustrating tenet of human nature. Behavior change is hard. So that was talking about the seatbelts, I think?
Yeah, so it's like our human behavior is getting in the way of like our simple solutions.
Like, because we're not ready to change, basically. Exactly. It's so difficult to change how a human thinks.
And everyone else is like doing the like difficult solutions, so we don't want to be different and go out of the loop and do like a simple one because everyone else is doing the simple or the difficult solution.
On
page 63.
Yeah, that was the one that we did about.
We already said that.
Yeah,
about the terrorists.
Yeah, so on the one on 138. If you want to look, do you know where it is at?
It is also explained. Where is this? 138. Is also, where does that say that?
It was about the
It is also explained why women in the doctor's ward died more often than women who gave birth at home or even in the streets. So this goes along with like the common solution of if like people were just more sanitary.
Yeah.
Like we think like, oh, you have to go to a hospital because like
it's so
sanitary and it's so safe. Like we have to go through all the trouble of getting there, but really it was like cleaner like in the streets.
Yeah, because I think it says up here there was a certain year that people started to learn about the deadliness of germs. Actually, I don't know if the year is mentioned up there.
It says over the next 12 months, they saved 3,000 mothers and 250 babies.
Oh yeah, that was once they actually learned about how deadly germs are and they started washing their hands more. That's crazy that it was safer to be born in the streets.
Yeah, like most people would think they would need this like big a lot of medicine to fix it, when really all they had to do is be a little more sanitary. So that goes along with the simple solutions, rather than the difficult ones.
Did you see how this, like, could you relate this to your life, like the whole entire book to your life in any way? Did you notice?
Well, like I said before, the whole money chapter, obviously money's going to play a big role in our lives, because, like, all the crimes, like prostitution, I already said that before, and, like, many people turn to medicine and, like, all these drugs to try to fix their sickness, when you can have the easy solution of washing your hands or just being more sanitary, instead of wasting all this money on, like, antibiotics and all that. So I think that relates to our lives a lot.
In a way, the chapter that talked a little bit about terrorism, it kind of taught me a little bit about stereotyping, just because it wasn't mainly based on that, but I think that since it showed, like, the different statistics on how many people from, like, a different country who do join terrorist groups, like, how many are compared to how many are not in terrorist groups, like, where their money comes from, I think that it taught us a lot, because we shouldn't really look at someone and think like, oh, like, just because of how they look, they might be like being crime or a terrorist. I know that a lot of people like think that, like, especially in airports, obviously, but like, it just goes to show that, like, it's not always who you think it's gonna be. So.
And also with the simple solution with medicine, like, today, no doctor, like, you never leave a doctor's office without being prescribed like an antibiotic. They always want to give you some sort of like medicine to try to fix it, instead of giving you advice on how to fix your
properly wash your hands.
Yeah. So I think that definitely plays a role in that too.
Yeah. I think that it was a really, like, the book was definitely an eye-opener, just because the questions in the beginning, like, relating prostitution to real estate, you're just like, what the heck? And then,
like, I thought I wouldn't like the book because it was about economy, I guess.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was boring, but it showed how, like, economy plays like an everyday role in our lives.
Yeah, just because of, like, the money and, like, where everything is coming from.
It's not even about economics, really. It's like showing how it's like
how we think.
More than that. Yeah.
It's really, I really liked the book. I thought it was really good.
Also, what did I have? Oh, I was like really, really shocked when in the book they said that walking drunk is more dangerous than driving drunk, because I would never think that at all.
Oh yeah, that's
how do you operate a vehicle when you're drunk? But like, how is that less dangerous than walking? I just thought, I don't know, it's filled with really like a lot of diverse information, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was a really good book. I didn't think I'd like it at all. I heard it super freakonomics and I was like, no.
Yeah, that was.
Yep.
All right.
Good.